Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast. I'm Niko Tamurian, joined as always by Najee Moye. Want to remind you, each and every week we break down the Seahawks, who they're playing, what we saw this past week, diving deep into it. We always like to remind you, I'm at the facility all week. We're talking to the players, Coach Mike McDonald, the coordinators. Then Najee's the guy in my ear telling me what to say and if I sound like an idiot or not. Usually it's that latter part, right, Najee?
Niko never sounds like an idiot, okay? Even
nice.
And Niko's the nicest guy in the world, but I can just tell him to stop talking or keep talking. That's really the long and short of it, honestly.
Usually it's stop talking, but
well, no, I mean, you always got good things to say, and we always have good things to say.
Well, there's good things to say when the Seahawks get a win like they did Sunday.
How about that?
Yeah, and that's again, one of the cool things we like to do in this show is we get to be at the facility, right? I was there Monday, I was there again later in the week, and it's just there was an energy there because there was so much unexpected. You didn't know what to expect from this thing. Obviously, first time NFL head coach and Mike McDonald, first time NFL offensive coordinator and Ryan Grubb, and sure there was, as we'll dive into, things that had to be worked out, especially in that second half. But the way this team responded certainly bodes well for what we hope is obviously a successful season, which I think would be characterized as getting back to the playoffs right now.
I would almost say it's playoff or bust for Seattle.
Sure.
Honestly.
Yeah,
definitely. And I know the first half kind of a little weird. It was weird at the beginning, honestly. But honestly, Seahawks fans should only be smiling right now.
Yeah.
Especially looking forward to the next opponent that they have this Sunday.
A lot of cool things there. And yes, let's talk about that because at the VMAC, they have already shifted gears to those New England Patriots. A lot of high praise coming from Mike McDonald, DK Metcalf. To that point, we want to give you some unique perspective on this. We're calling this Meet the Opponent. And to that end, one of my favorite friends and people in this entire business is joining us now. I'd like to introduce from NBC 10 in Providence, WJAR, Nicole Menor. Nicole, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for joining
us.
Thank
you guys for having me.
And we go back a few years, so it's just cool. One of my favorite parts about this is the notion and the idea that, we can talk. You're covering the Patriots, I'm covering the Hawks. And I know we both have friends in all these NFL markets, but I want to start with what we saw from those Patriots you covered this past weekend, because I think at least outside of the New England area, a lot of people were surprised to see them handle the Bengals the way they did, especially defensively. How much did that surprise you?
Well, you can say it was a surprise for everyone inside of the New England area, too, because I don't think anyone, fans, local media, national media, I mean, we're the first to say it. No one expected that from the Patriots. This is a year where they're supposed to be in a rebuild. They have this new young head coach, Gerard Mayo, with no head coaching experience, a new offense system. And it came as a shock to everyone for sure. And I think the Patriots, for them, it really came down to not panicking and just kind of sticking to the game plan that they wanted to stick to. They talked about openly they're going to run the ball, play a disciplined game, control the line of scrimmage, and they kind of just executed everything perfectly. And now it's about seeing if they can do it again.
That was my next question. What is your vibe on that? Like, we're not going to hold anybody to any predictions on this show because Najee and I are always wrong about that sort of thing. But, I mean, do you get the vibe that, like, okay, maybe this is sustainable? Bengals are a good team. We know Coach Mayo is a defensive guy, right? Like, does this seem like it could be sustainable for those guys?
I think they'll end up winning more games than we thought, right? I mean, we can't get too ahead of ourselves after week one because I don't think the way they won is necessarily sustainable. Only 16 points in this day's NFL. Probably not very sustainable, but they have a really good defense. They have a really good running back, and Jacoby Brissett is a veteran quarterback who knows how to manage a game and, make smart decisions. So I think we should have given them a little bit more credit, but again, you have to see the first game before you can really judge any team. But again, I mean, it came as a surprise, but I do think that the team and the fans are feeling good and feel kind of confident now that they can go and get a win at home on Sunday.
I think that one of the things that we're talking about at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, the Seahawks practice facility today, is that how there's so many similarities between these teams. Coach Mike McDonald, Coach Mayo are two of the youngest in the league. Both guys are defensive gurus. And we saw that. I mean, really, the Broncos scored 20 on the Seahawks, but you're talking about two safeties, the Seahawks fumbling a punt in the red zone, throwing an interception in the red zone. It was kind of misleading almost, so to speak, that they scored 20, which isn't some amazing score. And both teams are turning over from these crazy eras where obviously obviously the Patriots enjoying more success from all those Super Bowl wins, but obviously had a legend in their own right in Bill Belichick. And obviously the Seahawks had a legend here in the Pacific Northwest in Pete Carroll. What is, I guess is the question I'm going to ask out of all of that observation is, from your perspective, what is the talk around the Patriots facility about playing this Seahawks team that has all this newness going on, just like what's going on with their franchise?
Yeah, well, someone did ask Gerard Mayo today if he's ever crossed paths with McDonald, just because, they're two of the youngest coaches in the league. And he said they haven't crossed paths. I don't think they've really talked based on what he said today. But a lot of people, they were giving a lot of credit to the Seahawks. They talked about Kenneth Walker and how much of a problem he can be. I know he didn't practice today, something to keep an eye on, obviously. And just the way that defense is. And I think for the Patriots, they know that teams now are going to come out and try to shut down their run game. And they expect that from the Seahawks defense. And I think the Seahawks secondary is getting a lot of credit from what I heard around the locker room today. So I think that, there's a lot of respect, it sounds like, between both teams, even though they're both kind of dealing with some newness this season.
I want to ask one question about, you brought up Jacoby Brissett earlier. He's kind of a bit of a journeyman, a good journeyman quarterback. Yeah, he's been around. I'm wondering why he hasn't gotten a permanent job. And I know he's starting. I know the Patriots just drafted Drake May pretty high in the draft. And honestly, he may be the quarterback of the future. But what's Jacoby Brissett's role going forward? The Hawks are expecting to get the full Brissett experience this weekend, right?
Well, the thing about Brissett, and like I kind of mentioned, is, and I think, again, a lot of us kind of overlooked it, and we just saw him as the guy who's coming in to be the mentor to Drake May. But we forget that Jacoby Brissett is a veteran quarterback. He knows how to make smart decisions. We saw that on Sunday. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, and he's calm and poised. We saw him use his legs a lot last week. I don't know how much we'll see that in the future, but he kind of is like exactly the presence that you want on your offense when you're having this uncertainty and when you're in a rebuild and you don't have this top tier level quarterback. So I think he kind of was one of the stars of the game on Sunday, that his stats by no means jumped off the page, but just the way he managed the game and kept everyone around him calm, I think was huge. And they would not have won if it wasn't for that.
I got to say too, it's so funny because all these teams, a lot of them say the same things at these weekly press conferences. Everything you said, we asked Mike McDonald if he remembers meeting Coach Mayo at all, and he gave the same answer. Or it's just all high praise all around. So I guess it's kind of up to us to figure out what the heck's going to happen in this one. I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't know what's going to happen in this game because there is so much newness. Obviously, I love both defenses, but I love both teams' running games. I think Kenneth Walker and Ramondre Stevenson are actually pretty similar in their games as well. So I guess I'll ask you, and Najee and I will chime in after from the Seattle perspective. But what do you think is in your mind, your opinion, a key to this one? What's the one thing that you're maybe watching that could be a difference for either side in this thing?
Well, what worries me most, and we were talking about this today, is that obviously, the Patriots' key to success is running the football. We know that now the Seahawks, of course, are going to game plan for that. And then what happens? What's the Patriots' passing attack like? And they're still really trying to figure that out. And again, that Seahawks secondary, pretty darn good. So that worries me most about the Patriots offense because we know they need to put up more points. So, we can see if they can get some explosive plays out of some of their young receivers. And then defensively, I just think, I feel really good about the way they played last week. Their defense is always expected to be a top 10 unit. They were flying all around the field. I don't think they missed any tackles last week. So I feel good in that sense for sure. I actually think, I don't know if we'll do predictions, but I have the Patriots to win this one now just because it's a 1:00 game with a West Coast team coming in. So I feel good about it, but I do think, the Mayo said today, the jump from week 1 to week 2 is really important to see how teams come out. So I also am with you. I'm not really sure.
You have a score for us? You got the Patriots winning. That's fine.
I think I went 2017 Patriots.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm in that score range as well. I think it's going to be something like that. Naj, what's your key?
I think it's going to be kind of a gross game. You mentioned the cross. It's going to be gross in the best way possible, honestly. And you brought up that cross-country trip from Seattle to New England. Point. It's brutal. Okay, going west to east is brutal, honestly. I think it's probably going to be 14-17, honestly. Something close like that. A gross game, like I said. Lots of running.
Seahawks or Patriots?
Seahawks.
You got Seahawks winning.
Yeah, but I will say this, though. Ramondre Stevenson is on my fantasy team, and I did enjoy his performance last week.
Yeah,
he was unbelievable last week.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I love that perspective you offered from the Patriots facility too. One thing I noticed that they kept saying today from the Seahawks facility is that the way that everybody was talking about K9 Kenneth Walker, and obviously he was great against Denver. One of the things is specifically DK Metcalf said it was more of what the game script called for, from the standpoint that, Metcalf certainly is the Seahawks' premier receiver. He had Patrick Surtain on him, and that's always going to be an issue for any wide receiver in the game. So one thing I'm looking for that could be a key in this thing. Now, listen, that Patriots defense, they didn't allow anything to a really high-powered passing attack in Cincinnati. So let's not think that suddenly the Seahawks are going to figure this thing out. But I think the Seahawks are at least going to make a concerted effort to try and open up the playbook more and try to get the passing game going. Do I think that's going to happen? That remains to be seen. But, it was the running game that won that game for them against Denver. The one passing touchdown from Geno Smith was to Zach Charbonnet out of the backfield.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'm going to be watching, and sorry if it's wrong if you're watching for it at Foxborough on Sunday, Nicole, but the one thing I'm going to be watching for is see if the Seahawks can open up the playbook. And I think they're going to have to, because you're going to have to be multifaceted against that Patriots defense. I respect both of your predictions. I'm going to say something similar. I'm going to go with 24. I said this about the Apple Cup. We have our big game here collegiately, Nicole, this weekend, Washington State. For that game, I said 24-20. I don't know who's going to win for this one. I'm going to say 24-20 Seahawks. I think it's going to be a really close, really fun game. And I think that's the point spread right now is 4 points as well. So, So Nicole, before I let you go, we've broken down this game, I think, in every way we can. I'm going to put you on the spot here too. What is the one thing for any Seahawks fan who's crazy enough to make that cross-country flight, or any displaced Seattleites that are in the New England area? What's your favorite part about Patriots game day experience, Foxborough, all that good stuff?
Okay, well, we have this crazy, monstrous video board. I don't know if you guys have seen a picture of it at Gillette. No, but it's a massive video board. That's kind of what makes Gillette unique. And we have a lighthouse now above the video board, which kind of gives you that New England feel. So you can go up to the top of it. I don't know about game day, if there's like a certain cutoff, but it's really cool. You can go up and you can even see Providence from the lighthouse. It's very high. And it's a cool little feeling. But listen, Patriots Place has a lot of little shops around, good game day atmosphere. So I think people too, going into this season, tickets were pretty cheap. And, I think people were waiting for Drake May to kind of get the starting nod before they bought tickets. And I think tickets are actually selling pretty decently now after they got the week 1 win. So hopefully it's a good atmosphere Sunday.
Oh, I love it. No matter where this game was played, whether it's Foxborough or Lumen Field here in Seattle, there's going to be great seafood. So
it's going to be great. We didn't even mention the Super Bowl at all.
I know. Well, by design, Nash. We don't like to talk about that. We won't talk about it. No, we pretend like Super Bowl 49 didn't exist. You want to talk about 48?
We'll talk about 48
or any of the other Patriots wins. That's cool with me. So, oh my goodness, Nicole, we appreciate your time. We know you're busy out there. Anybody who's watching this, listening, give her a follow out there. WJAR NBC 10 in Providence. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. We appreciate you. Thank you.
That's gonna be a fun game.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it was so cool to get that perspective from Nicole, because what's interesting about it, and I say this a lot of times, we're kind of in our own vacuum here, right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned this on the season prediction last week, that I'm only at training camp watching the Seahawks, right? And I get to see these guys every day. And yeah, DK Metcalf is a freak. He's awesome. Geno Smith is a really good quarterback.
Right.
But I think that sometimes when you're seeing the same guys every day, you can almost get that the blinders on, right? And that was a term you used.
Right.
So it's cool to see what Nicole had to say about New England.
Because she's the same as you, just for Boston.
Exactly. Yeah. So and we'll be doing this with some of the other teams around the country. We did it last season with the Commanders, my good buddy Scott. That's one of the things I love about the broadcasting business is you have all these friends in these markets, and you kind of the things that we say on the air and write on the air are kind of based in some part anyway. Yes, mostly what we see at the VMAC and things like that, but also what we're hearing from our friends around the league. Based on Nicole's analysis there, before we jump into some of our other segments here, Naj, what's your takeaway? I feel like the feeling I had about this game going in was kind of just reaffirmed that it's going to be kind of a slugfest, a defensive battle. I'll be shocked if there's either team gets over 30 points.
Yeah, I like I said before, I said multiple times in the interview, this game is going to be kind of gross, honestly. It's going to be that sort of football. These teams are basically, you said it during the 4 o'clock today, during my show, that these teams are basically looking in the mirror at each other, honestly. Strong run game. I would take Geno Smith over Jacoby Brissett right now, honestly.
Sure.
And even the receiving core, but honestly, the defense on both sides is tough. You take the personality of the coaches. Gerard Mayo was, I mean, a very, very tough player also. I really believe that this is going to be a big test for the Seahawks, though.
Yeah.
Going across country, having to deal with a tough running back in Ramondre Stevenson. Now, I wasn't just blowing smoke. I was just telling you, this guy can run.
Yeah.
He's a strong runner. He's a big guy also. It's almost like I don't want to say a better version of Jack Charbonnet, but one who's been in the league more.
Well, I want to say this to the travel point. Mike McDonald actually brought in a sleep specialist.
Really?
Because he wants the team to figure out the West Coast. He wouldn't get into everything.
Well, you know what it's,
but I want to, it validates your point.
Well, you know what it's like. I mean, being from New York and having to travel from Washington to New York, or I lived in Florida for a long time, traveling from New York or from Florida to Washington. It is exhausting going west to east. I mean, and going east to west is even worse. So I think that would definitely help. And Mike McDonald's great minds think alike.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I mean, it's cool because everything that's been brought up in this game by us two and Nicole as well, it's kind of validated. One thing that stands out to me is a difference in this game, Najee. And again, blinders on, whatever.
Right.
I saw something last Sunday.
What did you see?
I saw
something too, but I want to.
It might be the same thing.
Maybe the same thing.
Well, we're for a show. We're supposed to go back and forth. We kind of agree on a lot, but that's okay. Great minds think alike.
Well,
I saw a different team in the second half than the first, and not just from the obvious stuff. Okay, like listen, you started the game. First play of the game, Geno Smith was sacked by the Broncos. Second play of the season, he's thrown an interception. The Broncos turned it into a field goal thanks to the Hawks defense settling him down. I saw a fumbled punt. I saw penalties. I saw 2 safeties in the first half.
Which was crazy.
So nuts.
Yeah. First game of the year, though, you're going to see weird stuff.
You're going to.
Yeah.
But what I saw in the second half was a team that cleaned up a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And I'm not just saying that, okay, K9 was suddenly running much better and the line was blocking better. All that stuff is certainly true. But I just saw a team that was like, okay, let's lock this up. We're going to win this thing. And I think that I understand that it's only halftime of game 1. I get that. A half of one game in the first game of the season. But I think you saw something that it's like, okay, this is the Mike McDonald team that we're going to see going forward. And that's what we saw. I think that they figured it out. That doesn't mean they're going to suddenly go 17-0. Of course not. But
no. Well, no.
But what it means is, okay, these guys have something going and they figured out, and all of this newness and all of this stuff that's going along with that, they found, okay, the recipe. Mike McDonald used the language the other day. Okay, we're in a dark place and there's only one way through it. And let's go through it. Those were his exact words.
I love that.
And they did it.
Yeah.
And they freaking did it in the first game. And that to me shows the sign of what his teams are going to be like.
Yeah. Football is a game of adjustments.
Right.
You adjust from play to play. You adjust from drive to drive. But the ability to adjust, I mean, you said basically night and day from the first half to the second half, And this Broncos team is a well-coached team. Say what you will about the quarterback and the whole entire situation. Sean Payton's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah.
The Seahawks made almost night and day adjustment in halftime to lock that game up. Also, one thing that I saw was a defense whom I've never seen. I wouldn't say never. I saw a defense that will yards after catch. What is that?
Yeah,
I saw a defense that will, if guys coming to you, they may make a catch, but they're hitting them at the point of impact.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, these are strong tacklers on defense. These are guys you're not going to get any extra yards. You're going to get what they allow you to get.
Yeah.
And that was even more prevalent through the second half. What I also saw was, and I want to mention this as if we don't know that Geno Smith is a fast quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the rushing touchdown.
That was great.
He hit 21 miles an hour as a quarterback. That's almost unheard of. I mean, we have a couple of guys here and there. We forget how fast Geno Smith actually is.
Yeah,
He's been in the league for a little while. He's about my age. Say what you will, but I think what we might see going forward is Geno being more okay with just taking it and just bolting.
Right.
And he bolted for that.
Oh, that was a beautiful play. What I loved about that too is Geno's always so cerebral and intelligent. That was one thing Pete Carroll used to always say, and that he processed that play. And he did it so quickly that he realized he probably isn't going to have an option downfield. So he went.
He's like,
and we saw a lot of green in front of him too.
Yeah, there was a lot of green in front of him.
Yeah, and so
there were a lot of good things to like about that Seahawks game last week, honestly. And I think there's going to be more of the same, but also a different wrinkle that we're going to see this weekend. I mean, you talked about K9 a little bit. We saw a lot of K9 last week.
Yeah.
And we'll get to fantasy stuff in a second, but I think there's one guy in particular that if you don't have, you're not going to get him if you don't have him now. But look out for on the Seahawks roster. Obviously, DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Over the top. I'm seeing a lot of bombs happening in this game. A lot of attempts. Now, I did say this is gonna be a gross game, but when you have a lot of runs in a game, you have a lot of options for play action over the top.
Well, and that's the thing is they made a point, the Seahawks today, as I was mentioning earlier, that they want to, DK himself said we were going to try and open the playbook. The script of that Denver game kind of calls for more runs.
Right.
They kind of took the game over so quickly that it became a thing where you score 17 points. It was spread out technically over the third and fourth quarter, but the last touchdown came on the first play of the fourth quarter. So really, for all intents and purposes, it was a 17-point third quarter, which meant the Seahawks were going to try and ground it down the rest of the way.
Which is a good, you mentioned it before, adjustments in halftime.
Exactly.
Very
important. And that was my big thing, takeaway from this, the idea of this. And I just think that ultimately, when you look at it, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like, even if that first half was a little nerve-wracking.
And say what you will, I mean, everyone's nervous. It's the first game of the year. You're out there in Lumen Field. It's a beautiful day. You have these beautiful jerseys on, and we don't like to shoot safeties in the sack. Come on now,
right?
It's a weird start to the season. Teams have had weirder starts and lost.
Yeah.
Honestly, so.
Well, normally later in the show we would do our predictions. We did that earlier with our guest Nicole, and we'll have a guest who covers the Dolphins next week. Najee, when we're talking about bets and the best bets this weekend, we're talking about picking games. A lot of folks like to go to our local sports books here in Washington. Whatever NFL team they're feeling that weekend. If you're out of state, of course, you can do that. Certain states anyway, you can do the mobile betting, which is interesting. But best bets this weekend when it comes to an NFL game, Najee, what are you going with?
Here's the thing. Anytime you have a starting quarterback go down, it's unfortunate, especially when they're your Super Bowl pick, which was the Packers for me, as I talked about the last week. I like Jordan Love. He's on my fantasy team. That being said, the Colts are on the road this weekend in Green Bay, and the Colts played very, very well against the Texans last weekend. I like the quarterback a lot. They're going on the road against the Packers as a 5-point spread. I think the Colts even beat that. I think they'll win the actual game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be close, maybe 3 points. Yeah, and Malik Willis is the Packers quarterback. He's been on the team for all of 21 days now at this point. So, I think it's maybe a safe bet. We like Malik Willis, but let's go with the Colts here.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I want to remind everybody, watching or listening, especially if you're checking us out on the KOMO News YouTube page, let us know what you think. Is that line, is it a good call? Is it something you think will work out? When it comes to fantasy picks, we're going to talk about momentarily, or even our Seahawks prediction, we'd love to hear from you. And again, be nice, and you can let us know what you think about our pick. Just hold us responsible.
Please do not come for us.
Yes, exactly. So, with that said, I'm going to go with the Rams, 2.5-point favorites over the Cardinals. And I know the Cardinals put Buffalo tough. To my opinion, they had the big lead, and they just let it go.
Yeah.
So I think that it's when you look at that, I think that I like the way the Rams are playing. I think it's a good solid 2.5 points is not a lot. It's a field goal, right?
Right.
So if you're a field goal, you're safe, you're home. Basically any win unless it's a 1-point thing. So I like the Rams. That's my pick. I don't have any issue with your Colts pick. I
like the Rams pretty well too, actually.
Yeah. I just think that it's so hard to predict point spreads.
The bane of my years, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, the Seahawks favored by 6.5, and they went by 6 this past Sunday. It always ends up that way.
It always ends up. But the half point always get me.
Yeah. So that is your best bet for this weekend. On that note, we want to offer best fantasy football plays, and by best I mean the best in this room.
Well, let me tell you, as someone who has come in, who has never won a fantasy league, who has played in a lot of championship games. I think I played in 3, and I'm 0-3. I'm almost like a Buffalo Bills in the late '80s. Here's the thing. Any player that's playing against the New York Giants this week, go ahead and pick him up. Jaden Daniels, I drafted pretty early in our KOMO, much to the chagrin of James Jocelyn, who was a big Commanders fan. And I picked him up early because I was like, he's a running quarterback with a great arm. There may be a moment that may be coming in handy, and this is that moment, especially since I drafted Joe Burrow otherwise. I'm not sure if he can hold a water bottle right now at this point. Jaden Daniels, pick him up if you can. He should be available in a lot of leagues. I think and sleeper is about 30% to start, maybe about 70% picked up. Depending on the size of your league, it should be available if you can. Look, the Giants defense made Sam Darnold look like John Elway last week. Pick him up. Come on now, guys.
Yeah, there you have it. I think that I like both picks there. I like our Seahawks predictions.
Yeah.
I also don't have an issue with Nicole's pick either. I think it's going to be a really close weekend of football. Like I said a moment ago, I think not a moment ago, a while ago, but the Apple Cup even college game, Washington State. I think the Huskies or Cougs could win that game. I said 24-20 because I don't know who's going to win that thing.
As long as the Huskies throw a touchdown in the first quarter, I think they'll win.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. So, yeah, I think it's boy, it's gonna be.
It's gonna come up. So the rain is in the forecast. Who knows? But it's gonna be weird having Apple Cup unprecedented times. We're still in unprecedented times, especially when it comes to college football. Almost get ready for the Apple Cup. It's gonna be kind of interesting because both these teams are kind of how do you put this? It's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird.
It's a weird time to have apples still on the tree and have the Apple Cup. You can't fill the cup with apples because they're on the tree.
They're on the tree, yeah. So,
but I'll tell you, it's gonna be weird at Lumen. Don't get me wrong, I love Lumen Field, the 12s and everything like that. But like, it's gonna be weird for this game.
Yeah.
I think that also there's something about being at Husky Stadium. There's something about being at Martin Stadium when it comes to this game. But listen, it's what we have this year. It was either this or no game. And this was kind of the clincher to get that 5-year deal done in the Apple Cup. So I'm all for it. While the Seahawks are away, the Huskies and Cougs can come out and play. And I think it's going to be a fun game, Najee. I think it's going for a great week of football. And next week, I think we'll know a lot more about those Seahawks, especially.
Yeah, I think Nicole talked about the week 1 and week 2 jump. I think the Hawks are in for a pretty big jump this week. It's a pretty tough game. That being said, going across country in New England, that team's gonna be tough. I do think the Hawks will win. It may not be, like I said, it's gonna be gross, but I think the Hawks will win, and I think the Huskies will win also as well.
There you have it. I don't know who's gonna win the Apple Cup. I think there's something about the Cougs, and there's something to be said for that energy of being left out and whatnot. I'm not saying that like the dogs aren't going to be motivated. Of course they will be, but I just think there's something interesting to that as well. So next week, again, this is your spot, the KOMO Sports End Zone, everything Seahawks football. I'm at the Seahawks facility, the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, at least multiple times a week. And it's a really impactful thing because you just get to interact with the players. You get to see what they're doing on the practice field. You get to see who's not practicing. And of course, we get to ask them questions as well. So consider this your inside access to the Seahawks, brought to you by KOMO for the KOMO Sports End Zone. I also want to note that we'll have a guest next week ahead of that Week 3 matchup with the Dolphins at Lumen Field from our affiliate in West Palm Beach that covers the Miami Dolphins, and they have an interesting team. It'll be interesting to see how they barely got past the Jaguars, but they had a big play to do it from Tua to Tyreek Hill. So it'll be interesting to see how they go this weekend against Buffalo, and that'll be a fun game and just see what happens after that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of this year with the new Hawks head coach, I think I kind of predicted last week that this is going to be kind of like the Hawks go 3-0.
I hope so.
I hope so. And I don't want to look far ahead to next week. But I mean, I will, and I'm looking forward to the Dolphins game because the Dolphins. I mean, we look at the Broncos and we look at the Patriots. We're kind of like about here,
Yeah.
The Broncos is a step up in competition. Okay. Oh, the Dolphins. I'm sorry, is a step up in competition. So we have to see. I think we're going to. Hawks, but I'm all smiles on this side. So
I hear you. Well, Najee, this is always a great time. Welcome and goodbye to the KOMO Sports End Zone. We love bringing you this inside access each and every week. For Najee, I'm Niko. Go Hawks, right?
Go Hawks.